So what we need to understand is that for the start, what we are learning, we are looking at, the key issues or the details of concept curriculum in terms of its meaning, and then its development and its design. Then we will zoom into related curricular issues in the subject history. So our second unit talks about curriculum perspectives and design. And then under it, we're going to look at the concept of curriculum. We're going to look at the concept of education. We'll look at the relationship between education and then philosophy, curriculum philosophies. Then we look at curriculum design itself, the various forms of or approaches to curriculum design. And they also look at the principles underlying the design of a curriculum. So that is going to be the focus of our online session today. So we quickly zoom into that so you can see my screen. And then you see that curriculum development is guided by philosophy. So here what we are saying is that every education system has its own philosophy that it pursues. So Ghana as a nation or as a country has its own educational philosophy that it pursues. The same applies to other countries like the United States, like Canada, Australia, China, and whatever. So those educational philosophies, they influence what should be taught, how it should be taught, and why we need to teach it. So it is very, very important that when we consider the development of a curriculum, we also understand the nitty-gritties of, philosophies that drive education systems. That's why I see that understanding philosophies improves instructional decisions. So the general scope of philosophy that an education system is pursuing is what will give direction to what kind of instruction is needed and how should it be done to help learners understand the realities of life. Okay, now what is the meaning of philosophy? And the concept philosophy simply means love of wisdom, someone who wants to be wise. So when we say a philosopher is a wise person, someone who has dedicated his or her life to become wise. That is a philosopher. And philosophy means wisdom. It emanated from the Greek etymology, phileo and sophia. So that is it. And then when we say philosophy, we are talking about truths, reality, human existence. In philosophical terms, we call it ontology, which talks about nature. We also have epistemology. Epistemology talks about the procedure, how nature should be understood, how nature should be explained. And then we also have the methodological aspects of reality, which talks about the procedure or the methods that we adopt to understand human existence. Some believe that reality is objective. Some believe that reality is subjective. People believe that it exists in the minds of people. Others believe that we are a product of our environment. Others also believe that man has some form of influence over the environment. So regardless of each of these realities I'm emphasizing, it gives us glimpses of, how we should understand what reality constitutes. All right. Now we come to meaning of education. So we are looking at curriculum, philosophy and education alongside, because there is that nexus between these three elements I am emphasizing. There is the connection between education, curriculum, and then philosophy. Education cannot be pursued without designing a curriculum. Curriculum is impossible without education. And then curriculum and education are driven by philosophies. All right. So derived from the Latin word educare or educere, which means bringing out inherent potential. And ducere also means to lead, to lead. So simply put, we are saying that education is geared towards bringing out inherent potentials, hidden abilities of some group of individuals. And in this context, they are the learners or the students. So bringing out the potentials of students or leading a discourse, leading or directing people towards a certain end. That is the meaning of education. So we see that education develops the mind. That is the intention of it. It intends to develop the mind. That is the cognitive domain, the character and the skills. The character, you are talking about the affective domain, and the skills, you are talking about the psychomotor domain. All right, so we proceed. What is the meaning of education? You see that education in the largest sense is any act or experience that has a formative effect on the mind, character, or physical ability of an individual. It simply puts, education targets the three major educational domains, and they are the cognitive domain, the affective domain, and the psychomotor domain. And then when we are to consider education within the social context, we see that it is the process by which society deliberately transmits its accumulated knowledge, skills, and values from one generation to another. And so in this context, education is being considered as a social, medium through which behaviors are changed or generations are imparted. The purpose of education is to develop the knowledge, skills, or character of students. And so in the modern times, it has acquired two different shades of meaning, namely an institutional instruction given to students in school, colleges formally, a pedagogical science studied by the students of education. So this particular slide, it is trying to give us three distinct explanation of history. History as essential tool for developing the three domains of learning. And then two, education as a social instrument or a social apparatus. And then three, education as serving as an institution where people receive instruction and a pedagogical practice. Now, what is the concept of educational philosophies? According to Thelma Robertson, most prospective teachers confuse their beliefs with the ideas of teaching. Yes, every teacher looks at education from different perspectives or standpoints. People believe that they need to talk and learners need to listen. The learner can only understand when he or she is talking throughout the lesson and the student is listening. Others also believe that it is an engagement, that you need to engage the students. So different perspectives of prospective teachers affect the way they teach. So you see that education philosophies then are not what you want to do in class to aid learning, but why you do them and how they work. So that is the epistemic foundation of education. That why do you do them? If you are saying that teaching is about talking and a group of people listening to you, Why? Why are you doing that? Or why do you say so? How does it work? How effective will it be? So at the heart of a curriculum development is philosophy, because it helps shape the belief systems of teachers or educators regarding how to teach and how students should learn. It helps teachers or educators to form arguments and form assumptions to ensure that at the end of the day, they are putting up their best. We also see that philosophy develops a broad outlook, and it also helps in answering what schools are for, what subjects are important. So why school? That is philosophy. Philosophy will let us understand that, like, the schools that we have there as agencies of imparting knowledge from generation to generation. Why? Why is it existing? Why school? How should students learn? What materials and methods are relevant for students to learn? So, generally speaking, we are saying that philosophy is the starting point of decision making in education. And then we also have, you see, that given the epistemological frame of education, educational philosophies can be grouped into four relatable types. So when we focus here, as such, it means that when we consider how education should be conducted, why it should be conducted, to what extent, who are going to be involved. That is the meaning of that epistemological frame of education the slide is talking about. Now, in terms of these questions or philosophical, intimations, we have these philosophies that underlie the development of curriculum and then education in general. That first philosophy is perennialism. The second one is essentialism. The third one is progressivism. And the last one is reconstructionism. And you see that these educational philosophical approaches are currently used in classroom the world over. Yes, globally. Some countries believe in the perennialist educational philosophy. Others believe in the essentialist educational philosophy. Others believe in the progressivist educational philosophy. Others also believe in the reconstructionist educational philosophy. And then they tell us about what to teach or what we should teach, and then why it should be taught. Yes. So we shouldn't forget about that. You see that when teachers design curriculum, they identify what will be done, who will do it, and what schedule to follow. I have explained this one already. Now, in tandem with curriculum design, what is curriculum design? You see that is this one concerned with issues such as what to include in the curriculum, how to present it in such a way that the curriculum can be implemented with understanding and success. Teachers design each curriculum with a specific educational purpose in mind. Yes. So the key issues, what should be the goal of the curriculum? What should be the objectives? What should be the nature of the content? Or what should constitute the content and the learning experiences? And also, how should it be evaluated? All these things are issues considered under curriculum design. Now, with regards to the philosophies, they have been grouped into two. We have the traditional curriculum philosophies and the modern curriculum philosophies. So first of all, look at the traditional ones. The traditional ones, they are basically four. We have the idealist educational philosophy. You also have the realist educational philosophy. Please, just a second. We have the idealist educational philosophy, the realist educational philosophy, the pragmatist, and then the perennialist. So these are the four major traditional educational philosophies that we have, or curricular philosophies. Now we are going to take them one by one. This is how we are going to understand them. Look at the general meaning of the philosophy. You look at its take, or how the philosophy prefers curriculum to be. What should be the role of the teacher? What should be the role of the learner? And how should curriculum be evaluated? So that is what we are looking at. Now, when you take idealism, generally speaking, it is one of the oldest philosophical systems. And then the main proponent of the idealist philosophy was a Greek philosopher called Plato. Plato was the one who introduced that philosophy. There you see that they advocate for what is real and permanent. And then for idealist philosophers, they believe that ideas are the only true reality. Ideas, they are the only true reality. So when we talk about reality, we are talking about ideas, what exists in the mind. Also, it emphasizes the spiritual component of man. The idealist philosophers, they say that every man or every human being is a spiritual being. And so, what should be the role of education according to this philosophy? The role of education is to develop an individual, the consciousness of the individual, and the spiritual being or self of the individual. That should be the focus of education. And then the ultimate responsibility for learning rests with the learners. So now we have looked at what the philosophy says or postulates about the role of education. The role of education is the process of development of a person, his or her conscious and spiritual self. And then the learning, the whole process of learning rests with the learners. What is the role of the school in the life of the learner? The idealist philosopher is saying that the role of the school is that the school exists to develop character, increase knowledge, and cultivate aesthetic taste. So it means that the school exists to mold character. The school exists to increase knowledge and then also develop the aesthetic abilities of the learner. When the school is able to do this, that is the true meaning of education according to the idealist philosophers. What is the role of the teacher? The teacher is expected to be a model, a friend, and guide to the learners. So that is the postulations or the assumptions of the idealist philosopher, and how they see education to be, how they see the learner to be, how they see the teacher to be. Okay. Now let's come to the second traditional education philosophy, that is realism. The realist school of thought is traced back to Aristotle. That is the main proponent of the philosophy. That is Aristotle. He's also a Greek philosopher. And according to this philosophy, matter or objects that we see exist by themselves. That is a true reality. You see that they exist absolutely with or without man. So, in contrary to the idealist philosophy, who say that reality basically is premised on ideas. So ideas constitute reality. But for this one, they say that reality is out there. It's not within. It is outside. It is far from a man. It is a concrete object that exists out there. That is the realist philosopher. And they advocate that values exist objectively. You see, so they believe in objective reality. They are very absolute and eternal. And then they hold on to the principle of independence of matter. It means that man doesn't have any control over reality. Matter is something that exists out there. And then they believe in the principle of orderliness of the world behind its organization. I mean that the world is bounded by some kind of universal laws. And then the principle of the world as real as discovered by the scientists. So they believe in scientific reality. What is the ultimate educational aim? You see that the ultimate educational aim is achievement of knowledge of nature and inner workings of the universe. So knowledge of nature, the natural principle, the natural elements, the natural realities. That those are the things that should students should understand, should know. So what is their take on education? According to the realist philosopher, education is essentially the transmission of inherited culture from one generation to another. So they are not so much interested in moral development. They believe that there are certain elements in the society that are very worthwhile. They are very important that students has to know. So they need to be transmitted from generation to generation. And then the disciplines of curriculum should contain certain elements of culture. What is the role of the student? Students should learn disciplines to develop intellectual skills, to discover important principles and theoretical insights. Now, the third one, the pragmatist philosophy. And here you see that the main proponent of pragmatism was John Dewey. Yes, the proponent of pragmatism was John Dewey. And what is their postulations? Is it that pragmatists advocated for reality being considered as instrumental, that is used as an instrument to solve problems. So reality is not an object that exists there that we need to go and look out for, but reality should be something that should serve as instruments of change. It should be something that should solve problems. And so is it that this philosophy is therefore built on practical usefulness, the cash values of ideas. And the proponents of pragmatism, for them, they were reacting to the shortcomings of the first two philosophies that we have talked about. And they raised these criticisms against them. They see that the traditional curriculum content included a lot of meaningless and needless content. It means that previous curricula that were developed based on the two earlier philosophies were criticized to be having meaningless and needless content. And then they didn't give any attention or priority to utility education, how the usefulness of education, how education can be useful to the one who is receiving it. And then they also criticize the two as very rigid, not catering to the individual needs of particular learners. And this philosophy is built on practical usefulness. I've already talked about that. And they believe that truths or reality is what works best at a particular point in time. And then truths also should be the idea that has been tested, verified, and found effective in solving problems. So what should be the role of the teacher? The teacher or teachers should be a resource and guide. They should just motivate the students. And then teaching must be child-centered. It must be child-centered. And for pragmatists, they believe that all disciplines or all subjects are vital. They are very important. Regardless, the sciences are favored because the child is able to explore new knowledge, invention, discovery. So while they are saying that all subjects are equally important, they try to prioritize the sciences because they believe that that one will lead the child towards discovering new ideas, new knowledge. Okay. The perennialist. The perennialist. The perennialist draws from both idealism and realism. It means that this philosophy mediates mediate the idealist philosophy and the realist philosophy. And for them, they are saying that reality is premised on what we call perennial truths. It means that we have some universal and absolute truths that we cannot run away from them. From time immemorial, those things have been very, very, very important. So when we are considering the designing of a curriculum, we have some perennial truths. They are, let me say, they have been the truths of old that we cannot do without them. They should be parts and parcel of the curriculum. You cannot take them away. And so that is what they say. And then you see that the philosophy presupposes that there are permanent studies and knowledge that is available, particularly from the great books. And then they should be taught to all students. And then they also emphasize the importance of reasoning and intellectual development. And then for them, according to the perennialist philosophers, they believe that curriculum should contain important subjects taught in their customary separate forms. So to the perennialist, subjects like history should be taught as history, geography should be taught as geography, civics should be taught as such, rather than subsuming them under other subjects like social studies. They also emphasize the importance of subjects like literature, philosophy, theology. Why? Because these subjects or disciplines contain some perennial truths that should guide the lives of the learner. And then they contain certain realities that sharpen the minds of learners. Also, it says that for perennialists, what should be the aim of education? The aim of education is to ensure that students acquire understandings about the great ideas of Western civilization. That is why when you come to the university and you pursue programs related to history, they first of all expose you to Western civilizations, so that they believe that they are fundamental truths or realities that you need to understand. And what should be the focus of teaching? The focus is to teach ideas that are everlasting. Yes, that was what I was saying. That there are certain things from time immemorial, they have been there. We shouldn't change them. They are the perennial truths. So ideas that are everlasting, to seek enduring truths which are constant. They are constant, they do not change. They are, so example, the natural and the human worlds at their most essential level do not change. And then human beings are rational beings and their minds need to be developed. So that's the cultivation of the intellect is the highest priority in a worthwhile education. So developing the intellect of the learners should be the most emphasized issue in education. And then the curriculum focuses on attaining cultural literacy, stressing student growth in enduring disciplines. And then we also have what we call the essentialist philosophy. The essentialist philosophy. According to the essentialist philosophers, it says that the aim of education is to develop intellectual powers as well as educating competent persons. Cultural heritage needs should be considered for curriculum making. They are saying that in our lives we have some essential skills that students should acquire. What are these essential skills? Reading, writing, arithmetic. That is the 3 R's. Therefore, academic subjects such as English, science, and mathematics should be given the ultimate priority in the education process. Because at the end of the day, the student needs to know how to write, read, and calculate. These are the essential elements or skills that education should prioritize. What should be the nature of curriculum according to the essentialist philosopher? The curriculum should be subject-centered and should emphasize separate organized disciplines as opposed to integrated subjects. So the essentialist philosophers, they don't believe in integrated subjects, they believe in separate disciplines. And then the teacher in this case is considered an authority in his or her subject field, moving from traditional educational philosophies. The essentialists believe that there is a common core of knowledge that needs to be transferred or transmitted to students in a systematic and disciplined way. And then the emphasis of this philosophy is on intellectual and moral standards that schools should teach. And the core of the curriculum is essential knowledge and skills and academic rigor. And what should be the nature of school? Schooling should be practical, preparing students to become valuable members of society. School should focus on facts, the objective reality out there, and the basics, training students to read, write, speak, and compute clearly and logically. Students should be taught hard work, respect for authority, and discipline, because these are essential elements that will help the student to grow up and become an important individual in the society. And then teachers are to help students keep their non-productive instincts in check, such as aggression or mindlessness. Now, to the modern curriculum philosophies. Under the modern curriculum philosophies, we have what we call the progressivism and then reconstructionism. And in some contexts or in some books, we also add what we call the constructivist philosophy. And I'm sure maybe that one will, yes, that one will be subsumed under the reconstructionist philosophy. So let's look at the modern ones too. Progressivism. Is it that it is one of the educational philosophies which emanated from the traditional philosophy pragmatism? And then they say that education seeks to promote democratic schooling as well as social living. So according to the progressivist philosophers, they believe that education should gear towards developing individuals democratically, teach them how to live as group. That should be education. And other major emphasis is on a child or learner-centered curriculum. So the curriculum should place much emphasis or premium on the learner's interest, the learner's needs, the learner's abilities, the learner's aspirations, and among other characteristics of the learner. According to the progressivist philosophers, you see that curriculum emphasize 5 approaches to the teaching and learning process, and they are people planning of curriculum activities. So we should plan the curriculum activities together with the learner. The curriculum should be flexible, and then we should also emphasize individualized instruction. Teaching should be learner-centered, and then learning methodologies should be the selection of study materials should be in line with the interests and concerns of the learner. And you see that non-formal curricular activities and physical training in areas like games, related hobbies, and other co-curricular activities should be considered. Also, the aim of this form of education is to provide a learning atmosphere that allows children maximum self-direction and to reduce teacher domination in the teaching and learning process. So the thrust of this philosophy is that students should be the focus of education. That is what progressivist philosophers are saying, that students should be the focus of education. We should give enough room for students to do what they are supposed to do. Students should discover knowledge. They should go through education and not the teacher dominating the whole educational process. That is according to the progressivist philosophers. Reconstructionism. According to the Reconstructionists, they hold on to an anthropological, sociological philosophy that will put schools in the forefront of remaking society. So here we are saying that this philosophy is so much interested in the elements within the society. Very, very important. Because why? Because the students at the end of the day are coming back to shape the society they were born into. So there are certain elements, anthropological issues, there are certain sociological issues. They should be given, or they should be of so much concern to the curriculum developer or the designer. It emphasizes the needs of the child, sometimes at the expense of the needs of society. The aim of Reconstructionist education is to improve and reconstruct society as the need be, as well as education for change and social reform. Yes. So in simple terms, that's what they are saying. Education for change and social reform. So anytime you hear an education system preaching the need for social reform and change, then it means that such education system has been built on the premise of the Reconstructionist philosophy. Now, the critical social problems might be national or global, including such issues as oppression. So education systems that are so much concerned with oppression, issues of poverty, issues of hunger, issues of racial discrimination, ethnic strife, issues of wars, issues of health issues or problems, then you need to understand that such educational system is looking at the Reconstructionist philosophy. They are building their education and curriculum based on the Reconstructionist philosophy. And they believe that resources are available to solve these problems. And the education profession could be the catalyst to prepare and organize future generations to make this possible. In fact, I must emphasize that in the 21st century or in our modern world, most educational systems are tilting towards this philosophy. When you look at the model of education in countries like Canada, UK, America, these are some of the issues they are addressing. They are addressing issues of war, addressing issues of oppression. So sometimes issues of fraud, issues of health. That is why Canada is emphasizing nursing, medicine, and the rest. Other countries are emphasizing higher education. They are emphasizing where they address issues like race, the black race, and all that. So that is the direction the world is going or taking. Still on the Reconstructionist philosophy, see that according to them, teaching should be based on the use of multiple teaching materials, and they also consider the inclusion of subject matter that will be useful to serve the central cause of the issue of concern. Planning of the curriculum should involve various stakeholders, including learners, parents, and community leaders. It shouldn't consist of only experts in people who have gone to the university to study curriculum and instruction and they understand the issues. They just meet and then they plan something and come and superimpose it on the learner and the teacher. According to the Reconstructionists, they say that at the planning stage of the curriculum, learners should be there, parents should be there, community leaders should be there, because when we put these individuals together, they are the ones who need the issues or the elements of the curriculum you are designing. So if you design curriculum at the expense of these individuals, it means that there is going to be a gap or a problem. It also emphasizes the addressing of social questions and the quest to create a better society and worldwide democracy. You see, Theodore Brummel was the founder of social reconstructionism in reaction against the realities of the Second World War. Now, so we now understand the two dichotomies of educational philosophies, the traditional ones and the modern ones. And I must emphasize that under the Reconstructionism, yes, we have sub philosophies that have emerged. Researchers continue to write about them. They fit them into their theories and their conceptualizations when they are conducting research and all that. Now, let's look at the second issue under the unit, which is approaches to curriculum design. Approaches to curriculum design. And then under that one, the first approach to curriculum design is what you call the subject-centered design. The first approach, subject-centered design. And what is the subject-centered design or the subject-centered approach to curriculum design? You see that this is where the curriculum is organized in terms of subject matter or content. So this approach to curriculum design focuses on the designing of the curriculum based on subject matter. They utilize the subject structure, hence the mathematics curriculum. So here we are talking about, okay, so we should have a curriculum that focuses only on mathematics separately, English separated, geography separated, history separated, science separated. That is what this approach to curriculum design is saying. That when we want to design curriculum, we should focus on the subject disciplines. So you see that it's examples of subject-centered curriculum design. One, we have what we call the traditional subject designs. So the subject-centered approach to curriculum design can be classified into three. We have the traditional subject designs. We have the broad fields or fused design. And we also have the core curriculum. The core curriculum. So we are going to take them one by one. Under the subject-centered design, we are going to look at the three forms: the traditional subject design, the broad fields, and then the core curriculum. So let's take them one by one. The traditional subject design, what is it? Is it that this is the oldest and most widely used form of curriculum organization? And it has its origins in Western education that emphasizes 7 liberal arts of early Greece and Rome, such as English, mathematics, history, geography. So it's emanated from the Greek world. So the traditional subject designs, it says that curricula should focus on English, maths, history, geography, logic, and many more. And then the curriculum is organized in different specific subjects without combining knowledge across the subjects. So it should focus on a specific subject without combining. So it means that the traditional subject design, they believe that different subject disciplines do not have any connection. They are independent of the other. And so when you are designing curriculum, look at them separately or separated from the others. And what are the advantages of this curriculum? According to Hilda Taba 1962, it helps us to understand some of the advantages of this particular subject-specific design approach to curriculum. And you see that it is the most systematic and effective organization for acquainting the youth with the essentials of cultural heritage. It means that we are able to look at the subject disciplines separately, and it will be the most effective way. When you design curriculum on subject lines, it becomes very easy for you to implement the issues in the curriculum. And then teachers feel more comfortable. Why? Because at the university, the teacher does not come to study an integrated discipline. At some point in time, others are studying history alone. Others are studying economics alone. Others are studying geography alone. Others are studying mathematics alone, science alone. So the subject discipline or the traditional subject design, it helps teachers to feel more comfortable, so that if I go to the classroom I'm going to teach, I know that I have my geography curriculum with me, I have my geography syllabus with me, and that is what I'm using. I'm not going to be bothered with anything mathematics or anything economics. Okay. It's also saying that textbooks and other forms of learning materials are organized in terms of subjects. Yes. So you specifically realize that this one focuses on this subject, this one focuses on the other subjects. And then it also says that this design has the support of parents because they are familiar with it. They feel that it is an academically sound system. It also allows for specialization. Yes, it allows for specialization. That is where people choose to focus on a certain area or aspects. Also, the planning, implementation, and evaluation of the curriculum is easier. So, as compared to the integrated form, when it is designed based on subject lines, you are able to easily plan, implement, and evaluate the curriculum. But when it is in its integrated form, sometimes the complications are obvious. Okay. The second type under the subject design is the broad field, where according to this design, they believe that 2, 3, or more subjects are unified into one broad course of study. So when we are designing the curriculum, 1 or 2 or 3 subjects can be put together, can be fused. And then it is actually a system of combining and regrouping subjects that are related in the curriculum. The broad fields approach attempts to develop some kind of synthesis or unity for the entire branch or more branches of knowledge into fields. So example, language arts. Language arts. And the language arts, maybe according to the broad field design, it says that aspects like prose, aspects like literature, aspects like, let's say, grammar, reading or comprehension, composition, what again, literary devices, all these things, they have some connections, they have some relations. So we can unify them and call it language arts. General science, applied science or agriculture, chemistry, physics, geography, music, ICT, they have some connections. So let's put them together and call it general science. That is what the broad field design is saying. Physical science is the same thing. So athletics, soccer, whatever, they have some connections. Let's put them together and call it physical sciences, or what we call hyper, yes, or all that. So that is the main focus of the broad field design. They say they believe that some specific subject areas have some connection, so we should put them together, we should fuse them. And then to the core curriculum design under the subject lines. Here they say that they unify or fuse subject matter, especially in subjects such as English, social studies. So the difference between this and the previous one, the broad fields, is that the broad field, they say that 1, 2, or 3 can be fused. But this one, they are saying that subject matters should be entirely put together, or they should be unified. And the basic methods of learning is problem solving using all applicable subject matter. And here their content is planned around problems that cut across the disciplines. So they say that we have integrated problems. We have certain problems that cut across. Those problems, they find themselves in the field of history. They find themselves in the field of social studies. They find themselves in the field of, mathematics, science, English. So in that case, there should be some element put together and be taught as core knowledge for students to learn. They are organized into blocks of time, and then they should be compulsory for all students to learn, because They provide common knowledge and skills. They allow electives alongside core subjects. They constitute the segments of the curriculum that teaches common concepts, skills, and attitudes needed by all individuals in order to function effectively within their society. Okay. Now, so under core curriculum designs, so we have looked at the three, the broad fields. We have looked at the traditional subjects, the broad fields, and the core curriculum. But under the core curriculum too, we have the type 1, we also have the type 2. The type 1 says that separate subjects taught separately with little or no effort to relate them to each other. So mathematics, science, languages. So they are core. Mathematics alone, there are certain core elements that constitute the common problems of society, and we need to resolve them. So they put them together and they constitute what you call mathematics. And the type 1 says that it should be taught separately. And the sciences, yes, we have certain problems that cut across problems of human nature, problems of the physical aspects of man, matter, the state of matter, maybe plant and animal lives. And so that will warrant the agriculture, the physics, the chemistry, and all that. So they should be put together and taught separately as science. When you take the languages, the same thing, and other humanities. And the type 2 says that it is called the fused core. The fused core. And what does it say? The fused core, I'm coming. So the fused core is based on the overall integration of 2 or more subjects. For example, physics, chemistry, botany, zoology may be taught as general science. So this time around, we wouldn't have something like maybe chemistry alone, botany alone, zoology alone. So the type 2 says that no, we shouldn't look at them separately. We should put them together. We should call them the general sciences. Example, history should not be separated, geography should not be separated, economics should not be separated, anthropology and sociology should not be separated. Let's fuse them together, call it social studies, and so on and so on and so forth. So that is what you need to understand. Now, we are done with the 3 divisions of the subject-specific approach to curriculum design. So the second one, so don't be confused, the subject-specific, under it, that's why we looked at the traditional. And then under the traditional, I told you that we have the traditional design, we have the broad fields, and we have the core. But after the subject-specific approaches, curriculum design, we have what we call the learner-centered curriculum design. That is the second approach. And that one says that the curriculum is organized around the needs, the interests, abilities, and aspirations of students. In simple terms, we are saying that this approach to design says that the curriculum should be designed that should focus on the development, the human growth, and the learning abilities of the learner. So it should be a learner-centered curriculum design. So that is that. I think the details, when you get a slide, you read through and see it. What are the advantages of the subject? So we are going to look at the advantages of each of them. Advantages of subject-centered curriculum design, which was the first approach to curriculum design. Is it that what all children will learn in various subjects and grades is possibly prepared ahead of time? So one advantage of it is that preparations are done ahead of time when we are dealing with the subject-centered curriculum. 2, it is feasible and necessary to determine the minimum standards of performance and achievement for the learner. So determining the minimum standard of performance is very feasible when considering the subject-centered curriculum design. And it says that almost all textbooks and support materials are organized and prepared subject by subject or on subject lines. And curriculum planning is easier and simpler when considering the subject-centered curriculum design. And then it says that the intellectual prowess of individuals can be developed through this approach. And this subject-centered curriculum design is better understood by teachers. Why? Because the training they were given were offered on subject lines. So a history teacher only understand the methodology of teaching history. The geography teacher only understand the methodology of teaching geography. So if you give such a person an integrated or a core curriculum subjects design, and how are you going to expect that person to teach? So that is what we are saying here. But what are some of the weaknesses or the criticisms? What, in as much as we are saying that the subject centered design is very important, we see that it creates fragments or it brings fragments. In some contexts, they say that it creates gaps in the minds of the learner. So it means that if someone chooses to specialize, if the person chooses to specialize in mathematics or say geography, it means that knowledge concerning economics, knowledge concerning political science, knowledge concerning history, philosophy, and the rest, that person may lose that knowledge. Maybe the knowledge that exists in those subject areas too maybe or would have been so much of importance to the learner. But because we are saying subject-centered design, that person may lose that knowledge. It also lacks integration of content, yes. So the content only focuses on that particular subject. If it is history, history content. If it is RME, RME content, and nothing more, nothing less. This design stresses content and tends to neglect the needs. So when we are designing curriculum on subject lines, we are always moved by the content of the subject, and sometimes the needs, the interests, and the experiences of the students, we don't look at it. And then there has always been an assumption that information learned through subject matter curriculum will be transferred for use in every life situation. But it may be a deception. It may not be true that it can be easily transferred for use in everyday life situations. Okay, then what are some of the advantages of the broad field design? Is it that it is based on separate subjects, so it provides for an orderly and systematic exposure to the cultural heritage. So the complexity of life, it helps us to understand it because of the broad fields that we cover, the broad areas that the curriculum covers. It integrates separate subjects into a single course, yes, and it saves time on the school timetable. If it is subject based, when you are designing the school timetable, you need to allocate some period for the history teacher, the geography teacher, the economics teacher, the mathematics teacher, the science teacher. But in this context, if it is the curriculum is designed based on broad fields perspectives, it saves time so that we know that one or two or three are being covered on the timetable, and that's all. What are the criticisms? It lacks depth and cultivates shallowness. Because we want to fuse the subjects, we are tempted to only touch the superficials and we wouldn't go in depth. Unlike the subject design, where if it is history, the teacher takes, or the curriculum planners, they take their time to delve deeper and bring out the important content and learning experience, put them together. And when the teacher is also teaching, the teacher is able to delve or go deeper into the issues regarding history. But here, because it is broad field, the peripheries or the superficials will be touched, and maybe the core of the areas of the subject may not be revealed. It provides only bits and pieces of information from a variety of subjects, and it also does not account for psychological organization by which learning takes place. Now, advantages of the core curriculum. So we realize that the core curriculum will override the previous ones I've talked about. You see that it provides a means for society to initiate its young ones into the culture by equipping them with the basic knowledge, skills, values, and attitude for effective participation in the culture. Yes, because the core curriculum touches on the complex elements or the complex issues society is expecting learners to imbibe. It also makes room for the development of special attitudes and talents. Yes. So while the student is calculating, if the person is an expert in maybe the field of engineer and maybe the sciences, the person knows that when I grew up, this is the area I'm towing because it matches my attitude and my talent. If the person is so much interested in technology, the person already knows from the onset that I am going this way. So the core curriculum is very, very important. And it ensures that those students who are not very much endowed to pursue pure academic studies at higher levels of education did not end up as frustrated dropouts. Yes. Because when you look at the subject design, if you design the curriculum on subject lines, the student is not so much interested in the history and the geography and the philosophy and whatever you are teaching him, how the person fits into society. But the core curriculum, their target is the society. They look at what the society is demanding, and that is what they use to design the curriculum. So it means that when it happens that way, even if the child is not so much interested in the ideals of the subject area, the theory, the deep theories you are teaching him or her, the person is able to take away something at the end of the day and will help him or her to fit into society. Because if the learner is able to understand how to read, how to write, and how to calculate, at least if the person becomes a carpenter, carpenters, they calculate. When they are cutting the wood logs, they do some calculation. And that knowledge the person has gained out of the core curriculum will help him or her. If it's about reading, even fashion designers, they write, they read. So you understand. So that's what we are saying here. Disadvantages: in situations where there are too many core subjects which are loaded heavily with topics, learners have very little time to devote more attention to their optional courses for a detailed study. Yes, that is the challenge at the senior high school level, where you realize that people give much attention to their, their core subjects: English, math, science, social studies. They leave their electives, they go and write the WASI, and you realize that there are some trails in their elective subjects. Others too choose to focus on the elective subject because of interest. They are so much taken away by their elective subject. Me, I like mathematics. Me, I like geography. I like economics. I like government. I like history. You liking history, geography, and what about the science, the English, and the social studies? Who do you want to come and learn those ones for you? I remember a funny experience at the secondary level. When we were at the secondary school level, you hear that there's a student in the science department. They said he's the best student in maths, elective mathematics. You go to the business, you hear that they say that this student is the best in economics. You hear that this student is best in business management. This student is, but you are saying you are the best in business management. What about the remaining 8 or 9, 7 subjects? Who should be the best for you? So you have chosen to be the best in elective mathematics. Meanwhile, the WASI, we are going to write 8 subjects. So when you pass the elective mathematics and you are done passing it, what happens to the rest of the subjects? So that's what you are saying. Sometimes we give our focus or attention to some subjects and we leave the rest. Sometimes students may neglect the study of the core subjects. You see what I was talking about. As much as they should because of their belief that core courses are less important relative to the elective courses. So they have the belief that, oh, my parents have already given me the orientation that when I go to KNUSC, I'm going to study engineering. So let me pass my elective mathematics, my physics, my chemistry, and my biology. That's my interest. You will fail the English, you will fail the science, the core science, you will fail the mathematics, you fail the social studies, and you are stuck. That's what they are saying here. In cases where core subjects are built around real-life problems, there's a tendency for the curriculum to be offered in an integrated way. Yes. And when it happens that way, it overloads the students. Okay. Now to the advantages of learner-centered and the disadvantages. According to the learner-centered, they say that here it is a curriculum design where subjects, the needs and interests of the students are considered. Yes, they really consider the needs and students when planning the curriculum, when designing the curriculum, when selecting learning experiences and organizing content and learning experiences. And then because it is premised on the interests, the needs and aspirations of the students become active because they get to realize that what they are learning is about them. They see themselves in what they are being taught. And then the criticism is that the needs and interests of students may not be valid or long lasting. Yes, sometimes students may exaggerate. They may tell you things that are not really realistic. And two, the interests and needs of students may not reflect specific areas of knowledge that could be essential. Yes, you may be focusing on student interest, but there may be certain core knowledge that students may have to acquire and you may leave them out. The nature of the education systems and societies in many in countries, particularly in the developing ones, may not permit the learner-centered. Yes, especially Ghana. That is why we have developed a standard-based curriculum, which is seeking to focus on the learner-centered approach. Still, we are struggling. Why? It's because of the realities of our environment. What are the learning materials? How adaptable are we to technology? How do we assess technology? How tactful are we with the use of technology? How are we changing the school environment? We have not done all these things, but we are talking about standard-based curriculum. So now we are suffering or struggling to effectively implement the standard-based curriculum. And another disadvantage is that if you want to design the learner-centered curriculum, it is very, very expensive. The design is very, 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 very expensive. And then this design is sometimes accused of shallowness. Yes, because you may select a few of learners' interests, and at the end of the day, you may leave a lot of important issues out of the curriculum. Now we come to the principles of curriculum. What are the principles of curriculum? The first one, we call it the principle of totality of experiences. So when designing the curriculum, there are certain principles that we need to follow. And the first one is the principle of totality of experiences. What does it entail? Is it that it entails the totality of experiences that people receives through the manifold curricular, co-curricular, and extracurricular activities. So here we are saying that in designing the curriculum should touch both academic, non-academic, and extra activities that come together to form the learner, to make the learner relevant, and not necessarily looking at only the academic aspects. We call it the principle of totality of experiences. And then the second principle is called principle of conservation and creativity. And this one focuses on what? Those subjects and experiences which help in the conservation of cultural heritage and those aspects that will stir up the creative skills of learners. How students can adapt learning to changing or modifying situations and problems within society. We call it principle of conservation and creativity. And they also have the third principle called principle of child-centeredness. So what are we saying here? We are saying that the central focus of the curriculum should be the child, the nature of the child, which you should understand the nature of children, their concerns, what motivates them, What are their needs? These are the things that should be the focus of the curriculum. It should be adjusted to bring nearer to the child rather than the child bringing nearer to the predetermined curriculum. You see the difference. So people shouldn't sit somewhere and design a curriculum where they want to bring the child close to the issues in the curriculum. Rather, the child the curriculum should be brought close to the child. So the aspirations of the children should be considered. We also have what you call, oh, this is too small. I'm coming in just a minute. Mm, 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 mm. Okay. Principle of flexibility. Is it the curriculum should allow desirable changes and modifications of its content from time to time in order to keep it up to date to serve the varying needs and concerns of individual on the one hand and society on the other hand. So here we are trying to say that the curriculum, when we design curriculum, it shouldn't be too rigid. Sometimes people design curriculum, it takes 10 years, 20 years, and they keep teaching what they designed 20 years ago. It's very bad. So the principle of flexibility says that we should give room for modifications in already designed curriculum. And we also have the principle of utility. Utility here is it that the things that are useful, if you remember the pragmatist philosophy, is it that only the things that are useful to individuals and society should constitute the core of the curriculum or the thrust of the curriculum, and not any other thing. There are certain things they are irrelevant to life. We should take them out and focus on the usefulness or the utilities and put them in the curriculum. We call it the principle of utility. And we also have principle of character formation. Yes, it should train the desired traits and qualities of individuals, that it should form the characters of individuals. Rules, regulations, and routines should be set in the curriculum to guide or mold the behaviors and attitude of learners. You also have what you call principle of mental discipline, where the curriculum should be geared towards developing the mental faculties or the mental powers of the learners. It should focus on the cognition or the cognitive training of the learner. We also have what you call the principle of integration. We state that it should not split up into watertight academic subjects. Yes, we shouldn't split the subjects. We should put them together. They should be fused together, or they should be taught in a unified context. All right. And we also have this one, principle of social fulfillment. What does this principle say? Is it that the curriculum should be connected with the social life of the people? Yes. Since man is a social being, he cannot be isolated from the society. Curriculum should be constructed according to the social context of the children. Yes. So it should be designed to help the student fit so much well in the society. We also have principle of relating to community life. Relating to community life. Sometimes our curriculum or our curricula is too academic that students do not even have community lifestyle. They don't even see the need to engage in communal activities, and it becomes very bad. So we see that they should be curriculum should be designed so that students can participate in community functions or social functions. So naming ceremonies, festivals, other social gathering, communal labor or communal activities, all these things should be catered for in the curriculum. And then the principle of training for leisure. You see that the curriculum should be so designed as to train the student not only for work, but also for leisure. Yes, you should make room for them to rest. Every day we are learning, say. Every day the student is in the classroom. The curriculum at least should create a space where the students will have time to rest the mind and engage in other extracurricular activities. That is why in the school system, especially at the basic level, students learn and they, at a point in time they break. They say they are going for match pass. We are almost entering match. You realize that 6 match, they will go and rest their brain by going to match and all that. We also have what we call sports, athletics, athletics and games, drama. All these things should be catered for so that it will rest the mind or refresh the mind of the students, and then also engage them in other equally important activities outside the classroom but within the school context or system. And then we also have principle of correlation. Curriculum should not ignore the natural affinity that exists in between the subjects. It should aim at giving a correlation view of knowledge for students instead of compartmentalizing. Yes, we should, we should design the curriculum such that there should be a relation between everything or every subject that is being taught. But we shouldn't compartmentalize the subjects so that the students will feel like if I am studying geography, then economics is of no importance to me. If I am studying maybe physics, then social studies is not of importance to me. When it happens that way, it creates gaps in students. So in conclusion, what we are saying is that for all that I have taught or I have explained, what we are saying is that there is a connection between sorry, there's a connection between education, curriculum, and philosophy. Now, the people we design the curriculum for are human beings. They come from a society. It's a society that brought them up. So we need to understand that we should design curriculum based on philosophies which will fit into the society they are coming from. And we should also understand that the philosophies, they overlap. They are not sufficient on their own. So as a teacher, while you are being trained as a prospective teacher, one day when you become a teacher, use the realities of the various philosophies I have taught you today, blend them, and then use it to implement the curriculum to help your students grow or acquire the most important knowledge. You should also understand that teachers should blend approaches wisely. And so that brings us to the end of Unit 2. So at this juncture, I'll allow for questions. If you have any question, you can unmute your mic and ask. So for the, let's say 5 minutes, if you have any question regarding Unit 2, what I taught, ask question. The floor is open for you to ask question. You unmute your mic and you talk. Hello? Hello, are we there?
Yes, please. We are here.
Please, do you have any questions? Do you have any questions concerning what the Unit 2? Do you have any questions? Hello?
Sir, please, I don't have a question. I don't know about the others.
Ah, so does that mean that we all understand or understood what I taught in Unit 2?
Yes, please.
All right. If that is the case, then let's look at the third unit. I hope we finish this one before 9. The third unit talks about curriculum development. So now we have looked at the concept of curriculum. We have looked at curriculum and syllabus. We have looked at curriculum and instruction. We have also looked at curriculum design. And under curriculum design, we have understood the approaches. We understood the advantages of each of the approaches. And then We also looked at the principles of curriculum design. Now we are coming to curriculum development. When we say curriculum development, what does that mean? And the curriculum development, these are the issues we're going to address: the concepts, factors, processes, and models. All right. Okay. Meaning of curriculum development. Is it that curriculum development refers to all processes and activities related to planning, implementing, and improving the school curriculum. All processes related to planning, implementing, and improving the school curriculum. And the curriculum development, it is a phenomenon that is continuous and evolutionary, aimed at improving teaching and learning. And so Marsh and Willis say that they describe it as a collective and intentional process directed at beneficial curriculum change. Here we are only talking about how to improve the curriculum. That's the meaning. So what is the nature of curriculum development? Curriculum development is complex and multifaceted. See that it emphasizes cooperative planning among multiple stakeholders in education. After you have designed the curriculum, after it is being implemented, the continuous monitoring of the curriculum to ensure that it is meeting the desirable learning outcomes. That is what we call curriculum development. And what are some of the forms? We have curriculum revision and curriculum reform, the two forms of curriculum development. So while you are continuously monitoring the curriculum, what are you looking out for? You want to make minor improvements in the existing curriculum, and that is what we call curriculum revision. When we are making minor changes, when we are adjusting, when we are trying to make sure that certain few issues in the curriculum are well addressed, we call it curriculum revision. And then curriculum reform, we are talking about the overall restructuring. Maybe we have implemented the curriculum after 5 years, after 10 years, we are saying that, okay, societal needs, educational needs are changing, realities are changing, knowledge, new discoveries are coming up. Therefore, there's a need for us to do total overhauling. We are changing the whole structure and system of education. That one is called curriculum reform. So don't confuse the two. When you are making minor changes to the existing curriculum, we call it curriculum revision. But when you are restructuring the whole curriculum, we call it curriculum reform. Factors in curriculum development. Is it that according to Richardson, there are many factors that need attention when developing curriculum, and the factors are grouped into internal and external. So the factors, when we want to make minor changes to the curriculum, when we want to restructure the curriculum, we consider two factors: the internal factors and the internal factors of curriculum planning, implementation, and processes. Now let's look at the internal factors. The internal factors here, we are talking about learner characteristics, teacher quality and competence, subject matter, existing curriculum, institutional context, learner characteristics, teacher quality and competence, subject matter, existing curriculum, and institutional context. So these are the 5 internal factors that influence curriculum development, or that's helping reshaping or restructuring the curriculum. Now, learner. So here we are saying learners' needs, interests, abilities, attitudes, and values influence curriculum design. So as we grow, as seasons and times change, the needs of learners, they also change. What learners become so much interested in, it changes. The abilities of learners, they also undergo modifications. Learners' attitudes are changing. Values are changing. Therefore, the curriculum needs to do some adjustments or needs to do some revision or reform. Also, the relevant previous knowledge of the learner. That is why in teaching, we talk about something called relevant students relevant previous knowledge, RPK. So the relevant previous knowledge must be considered when selecting the content as well. That is where Oswald says that learning depends on what the learner already knows. So here it helps us, it puts our minds on what we call the basic educational principle. And what is the basic educational principle? The basic educational principle says that we should teach from the known to the unknown. And one educational philosophy says that no student is a tabula rasa. It means that no student is a block-headed individual. You can't say that there is nothing in the head or the mind of the learner. So something is already there or stored in the minds of the learner. So you are only coming to connect what is already in the mind to what is not yet known. And that is what you call learning. So these things internally within the school system, all these issues are supposed to be considered when we are revising or reforming the curriculum. Also, you need to talk about the background variables of the learner. What is the intellectual abilities, or what are the intellectual abilities of the learner? What is the emotional state of being of the learner? Even the background, where is the student coming from? Are the students coming from middle income groups? Are they coming from poor backgrounds? Are they coming from high income groups? How are you going to design a curriculum to fit these three diversities I'm talking about? The health status of the learner, the anxiety level, the career aspirations, the goals of the learner. Very, very important as internal issues. And then the second internal issue is the nature of the subject matter. Here we are talking about the content of the curriculum. So selecting subject matter involves deciding what to include and what to exclude. And you should make sure that the content should reflect societal needs and realities. They should be selected through situational analysis. In curriculum studies, we have something called situational analysis. Here we are talking about screening. You see when our mothers, they are preparing palm nut soup, and they want to take away the strands after pounding the palm nuts. So they pour water into it while the strands of the palm nuts are in the colander. So they sieve it. They need the liquid. Those are the things, the ones that they need in the saucepan as soup. So they separate it, and at the end of the day, they take the strands and the palm nuts away. Then they go and dry them under the sun. So that's what we call situational analysis, practical example. So we are screening, we are sieving to find out the strengths and weaknesses of learners, put them in the curriculum to help the learner learn successfully or effectively. They also have what we call the external and the internal characteristics of the subject matter should also be considered. It's still on the subject matter. So example, prior to the 1987 educational reforms, the government of Ghana realized that the curriculum or the curricula was too bookish, full of theories, liberal knowledge, no practical aspects. It was neglecting vocational and technical education, and that was what was multiplying the numbers and unemployment. And so there was a need for the 1987 educational reforms, which came to incorporate or infuse vocational and technical training in our Ghanaian education system. The teacher. Why is the teacher so much of importance when we are talking about curriculum development? The teacher is of importance because they are the implementers of the curriculum. And when we talk about the consumers of the curriculum, that one is they are the students, but the teachers are the implementers of the curriculum. We call them the curriculum gatekeepers. The teachers are the curriculum gatekeepers. After the stakeholders at the policy level or the national level, after they have done their own thing, it is the teacher who suffers. They are the ones who are coming to put it into practice. So they organize the content, they select the appropriate methods to teach, they design the learning experiences. So if the teacher has not been given the needed training, it affects curriculum success. If most educational programs in Ghana produce student teachers who do not have in-depth content knowledge, pedagogical content knowledge, then it means that the curriculum is going to suffer. So that one too, we should take note of it. External factors. Now we come to external factors. And the external factors, we talk about the contemporary society and culture. So you see the difference. We have now looked at the factors or the conditions that exist within the school. That is, those are the internal factors. Now we are looking at the realities or the conditions outside the school, but they have compelling effects on the school system, on the curriculum. And we are saying that they are contemporary society and cultural context, psychology of learning, financial resources, and government policies. And let's look at them one by one. Society and curriculum. Education has some connection to society. I've already explained that one. Curriculum should address social, moral, and economic problems. The school should prepare learners for democratic participation. So we say that education is not an island on itself. It is a nucleus of the society. Educational institutions are only serving as agencies who are transferring or transmitting the ideals of society to the young ones or to the younger generation. So it means that education coexists with society. So when you are planning the curriculum, one external issue you need to consider is, what is the society demanding? What is the society saying? What are the realities of society? What does the society need before you design the curriculum? And they also have what we call psychology of learning. Psychology of learning. Here we are talking about how learners learn, how they think and develop. There's a saying that if you teach the learner and the learner is unable to understand, teach the way the learner wants to learn. That is the assertion. You see that teach how the learner should learn. If you teach how you want to teach for the learner to understand, you do it and the learner is still struggling, then do the vice versa. Teach how the learner wants to learn. And all these things come under what we call psychology of learning. So learning theories influence curriculum planning. Yes, Ivan Pavlov, the classical conditioning theory of learning. We have E.B. Watson, Thorndike, B.F. Skinner, social learning theories, the theory of cause and effects, or the theory of practice and all that. Abraham Maslow's theory of needs, and other classical philosophers or proponents of psychological theories. And also, we are also talking about individual differences in terms of age. You are going to teach students who have distinct ages. So in a class, somebody is 12 years old, someone is 13, someone is 10, someone is that, and that. Sex, others are males, others are females. Social and economic backgrounds, others are coming from a place where they are socially exposed, others are not socially exposed. We have middle income group children, poor background children, we have high income group children. Cognitive development, we have high achievers, we have achievers. All these things need to be considered when developing the curriculum. The physical, the cognitive, if you remember when we were starting, I said that education targets the three main domains: the cognitive, the affective, and the psychomotor. And then the developmental levels of students. At what point should you teach a certain concept? That is why in the curriculum there is the principle of differentiation and scaffolding. And then another external condition or issue is financial consideration. Yes, every curriculum planning process requires adequate funding. Without funding, it cannot be implemented or the reality will not be achieved. Needs assessment. We need to conduct needs assessment to find out where is affected, to find out how to resolve issues in the curriculum and all that. They also have limited funds can also hinder curriculum success. So it means that financial considerations, they are important external factors that affect or influence the curriculum process. Government policy. This one, I think last week we even talked about it. So when leaders form their government, whether you like it or not, they would want to change the face of our education system. And when they do that, it affects the curriculum. If you remember, we shifted or we drifted from the objective-based curriculum to the standard-based curriculum not long ago under the Ekufado-led administration. There was the issue of the STEM program or STEM education, which was yet to be, or which is yet to be implemented. At some point in time, there was what we call free compulsory universal basic education, that is FCUBE, which was introduced by a certain government during the time of J.J. Rawlings. There was the issue of changing of the system of the education structure. They said 3-year preschool, 6 years compulsory basic education, 3 years junior high school education, and then 4 years SSS system. Someone will come, convert it to 3, others will come, change it to 4, and all that. So what we are saying is that in trying to design the curriculum, give your ears to what the government is also saying. Very, very important. Now, curriculum development process. You see, the curriculum development follows systematic stages, and the process is continuous and responsive to change. Now, in the development process, one thing that is very important to do is situational analysis. Situational analysis. Here, we see that systematic studying of societal needs and learner characteristics. Go out there, find out what students need or students need. Find out the characteristics of learners. Identify societal problems. Identify the aspirations of learners. Find out what resources are available. Find out feasible solutions and non-feasible solutions. And we also see that the situational analysis or the needs assessment I'm talking about, it is a continuous process. It doesn't end. Even after implementing the curriculum, go ahead, continue, find out what is changing, because human nature is changing every second, every moment, every time. So it's a continuous process. After identifying problems, design the curriculum, you go around looking out for new problems, new challenges, new aspirations, new discoveries to come and update the curriculum. Now, what's the importance of situational analysis? It ensures curriculum relevance to society. Yes, so that at the end of the day, we have built a curriculum that coexists with the demands of society or that intersects with society. But we shouldn't develop a curriculum where society and curriculum is disjointed. No, they should intersect. They should come together to solve a common problem. 2, it helps formulate realistic educational objectives, policies, and programs. Yes. So at the end of the day, we know that these educational objectives you are pursuing, they sit well with society. And so if the student is able to know A, B, C, D, and E, that person will see what he or she has learned in the society and will go further to solve problems. 3, support curriculum evaluation and improvement. Yes, it helps us. Situational analysis will help us to know new problems that are emerging, new situations in society, new demands, new career perspectives or career prospects, new aspirations of learners. Maybe at the time we were designing the curriculum, we were in a world where we need to channel our energy into engineering, medicine, and all that. But times have changed. It's just like today, they say the United Kingdom, UK, is in high demand for physics teachers and French teachers, language teachers. So you see, so it means that they will adjust their curriculum to fit that demand, and they will use it to solve that problem. Situational analysis also ensures continuity in the curriculum development process. Okay, so that's the importance of situational analysis. So we are saying that situational analysis is the first thing that you need to do when you want to develop curriculum. The second thing you need to do is the determination of aims, goals, and objectives. So now you are done conducting needs assessments. You are done with your situational analysis. You know what is out there. You know what learners need. You know what society is expecting the student to do. So where will be? So at the end of the day, you come to aims, goals, and objectives. What are the differences between aims, goals, and objectives? Aims are broad national intentions. So let's understand this one too properly. Aims are broad national intentions. So they are general statements that give direction to our education. So aims are national intentions or statements that we want to achieve under education. Goals are institutional intentions or statements, and objectives are instructional intentions or statements. So aims are national, goals are institutional, and objectives are instructional. So you realize that objectives are more specific, and then goals are related to institutions. So let me give you practical example. So example, the aim of Ghana's education system is to groom people into science, technology, engineering, and then mathematics. That is aim. Then we come to goals. So the goals will be defined by the various educational institutions. So under that broad aim, University of Cape Coast as an educational institution may have its own way of achieving that broad national aim. Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology may have how they want to achieve that broad national aim. The teacher training colleges may have how they want to achieve that national aim. Then when you break it down within the specific classrooms, the teacher will also have his or her own instructional intentions or outcomes that he or she wants the student to imbibe or acquire at the end of the day. So you see that the difference among the three terms is dependent on the level of specificity or educational purpose. Yes. And one scholar in the field of curriculum studies called Wheeler. For Wheeler, the aims, he calls it the ultimate goals. And then the goals itself, he calls it mediates. And then the objective, he calls it proximates. So according to Wheeler, aims are equal to ultimates, goals are equal to mediates, objectives are equal to proximates. Okay. What is the function of, or what are the functions of objectives? Objectives guide learners' development. They determine which contents and learning experiences are relevant to select. They provide basis for evaluation of an instruction's effectiveness. Yes. So this is very clear. How do we select objectives? What are the sources of objectives? Sources of objectives include learner, society, and subject matter. And then through philosophy and psychology, you see, we screen or we sieve the problems of learners, the problems in society, and what should constitute subject matter, we sieve them through lenses, through the lens of psychology and through the lens of philosophy. And I think I've explained these two. Philosophy, we are talking about what needs to be taught, why it should be taught, why are they necessary. Psychology talks about human development, so the developmental levels or stages of the learner, their level of maturation, their interests, their intellectual abilities, their sociocultural backgrounds. That is psychology. So you screen the objectives through these two important lenses, philosophy and psychology. Regarding the learner, his or her needs, aspirations, aptitudes, attitude, entry behavior, and educational gap are considered. What are the ways of stating objectives? We state objectives in three contexts. So we state objectives in behavioral context, expressive context, and problem solving context. So behavioral, what does that mean? Where we, as a teacher, you state your learning or instructional objectives in specific observable learnable behaviors. That is behavioral objectives. And then you state the conditions and standards of performance. That at the end of the day, okay, this is what students are going to achieve. At the end of the day, this is what students are going to attain and all of that. And then we say that objectives need to be SMART. The SMART is an abbreviated word where S stands for specific. So your objective should be specific. It should target one thing that you want to do. It should be measurable. So at the end of the lesson, students should be able to state three classifications of nouns. Don't say at the end of the lesson, students should be able to state the classification of nouns. It's not measurable. How can we measure that? It should be achievable and it should be realistic and then time bound or time framed. Don't set objectives that you need 5 hours to attain them. Meanwhile, on the timetable, you only have 30 minutes, you only have 1 hour. How would that be time framed or time bound? How would that be achievable? No. So we see that as a teacher, when you are setting objectives, they should be SMART, where S is specific, M is measurable, A is achievable, R is result oriented, and then that's one is the time bound. Okay. And then when we state objectives in expressive context or expressive outcome, what does that mean? We shouldn't specify exact terminal behaviors. We should encourage exploration and creativity, promote divergent thinking. And then it states a situation in which learners are to work. It states a problem which the learners are to grapple with. It makes both teachers and discoverers of knowledge. So here we are saying that stating objectives in expressive outcome means that you are stating it such that you will be engaging the learners. And it shouldn't be the sole job of the teacher. You go to classroom, you teach, you talk and talk and talk and you leave. No. Create the objective or craft the objective such that you will engage the skills, the minds, and the hearts of the learner. Okay. Then, so we are done with selection of objective. And another important issue when dealing with the process of curriculum development is selection of content. And here we are talking about the concepts, the principles, the elements, the generalization, the theories, the techniques, and the process or procedures that are required to be included in the curriculum. And then we select it based on their relevance, how relevant they are, or important they are, and their difficulty level. So a student in class 1, then you go and select content, algebraic expression, simultaneous equation as a learning content for a student in class 1. So it will not be feasible. And then you used to talk about, you see that examinations often influence content choice. Yes, because of examination, you should know what you are selecting. And then the next stage is learning experiences. Here we are talking about the daily interaction. So here we are talking about learner to learner interaction, learner to teacher interaction, teacher to learner interaction, learner to the external conditions in the environment, the external conditions in the environment with the learner, and so on and so forth, learner to peer relationship and all that. How the thing that transpire within the classroom, the relationship between the learner and the learning materials. That is what you call the learning experience. And it is very important that when we are improving the curriculum, we look at it. And then another element is the organization of contents and experiences. Yes. So after experiences and content, how do we organize them? And why do we do so? To ensure continuity and meaningful learning, promote integration, enhance cumulative learning, involve identifying the basic concepts, skills, and values that can be arranged. And then see that 3 main criteria to guide the organization of content and learning include sequencing, cumulative learning, and then integration. So when we are organizing learning experiences and content, 3 elements are very important: cumulative learning. So it's here. Cumulative learning, sequencing, and integration. Very, very important. And what is cumulative learning? Yeah, you see that learning progresses from simple to complex. Yes. So you start from the simple and gradually you'll be adding up. You'll be adding up. Don't put everything together, boom. So example, the social, economic, and political development of Ghana during colonial rule. And you want to put everything together and then bombard your students with the content. No, it should be cumulative. So maybe you take social, you build it, then you gradually you add economic. So that is the progress from simple to complex. It also requires increasing depth and maturity. So while you are doing it, you are looking at the maturation levels of students and at every point in time what they can assimilate or what they can acquire. Requiring a more mature understanding, more penetrating analysis, and deeper insight does not depend exclusively on content, but also on maturity of thoughts, levels of abstraction, sensitivity of feelings. This one is in relation to the students. Okay. And then what is the principle of integration? You see that how facts and principles from different fields can be related to one another. And integration, you have the horizontal integration and the vertical integration. Horizontal says that it links subjects, relating what is learned in mathematics to what is learned in economics, relating what is learned in English to what is learned in science. We call it horizontal integration. And vertical integration is the logical progression. That is, current level of understanding is dependent on the previous level. So just like I was explaining. So students will be able to understand economic development of Ghana or Gold Coast during colonial rule, unless you have taught them social development. So they build, they move, they ascend the ladder from social to economic to political. But you don't start from political and come down to social. No. And then it also promotes holistic understanding. And then the last issue is evaluation or evaluation, determining the worth or the effectiveness of the curriculum, checking alignment between objectives and outcomes, ensuring that they are continuous. And so in view of that, the processes of curriculum development is what gives rise to what we call curriculum development models. Now, let me go back to this so that you understand it properly. So I think it's here. It starts from here. So we said that issue the first issue in curriculum development process: 1, situational analysis; 2, determination of aims, goals, and objectives. We have explained them, goals and objectives. And then the next one, we said selection of content. So 1, conducting needs assessment or situational analysis, selecting aims, goals, and objectives of the curriculum. 3, selecting contents. 4, selecting learning experiences. 5, organizing content and learning experiences. 6, conducting what we call evaluation or evaluation. And then the curriculum development process is done. And that one gives or gave birth to what we call curriculum development models. What is the models? We are talking about diagrammatical illustrations of how the curriculum planning processes should be. And then they provide structure and clarity. Several models exist, and these are some of the models. As far as curriculum planning is concerned, the models include what we call the Tyler's model, Ralph Tyler. Ralph Tyler is a curriculum expert who developed a curriculum model, planning model in 1949. Wheeler also developed a model called the cyclical model. Taba also developed uh, another model in 1962, and so on and so forth. So we have Hilda Taba's model. We have Nichols and Nichols, 1972. We have Giles. We have Walker's model. And then we have Tyler and Wheeler. So Tyler's model. Tyler was the first writer who gave us a complete approach to curriculum development. Yes. And his model was called the objective or the rational linear model. The objective or the rational linear model. And according to Tyler, this model is based on 4 fundamental questions. And what are the 4 fundamental questions? What educational purposes should the school seek to attain? What educational experiences can be provided that is likely to attain these purposes? How can these educational experiences be effectively organized? How can we determine whether these purposes are being attained? And when Tyler was asking himself these questions, he brought up this structure or this model. So the first question, he was talking about selection of objectives. The second question focused on selection of learning experience. Third one, organization of learning experiences and evaluation. So according to Tyler, we have 4 stages of curriculum development: selection of objectives, selection of learning experiences, organization of learning experiences, and evaluation. What are the key takeaways from Tyler's model? So here they say that curriculum developers should be eclectic or diverse when they are selecting objectives. So they should look at multiple ways they can put up the objectives for the curriculum. Then selected objectives should be filtered through the psychological and the philosophical screens. I've already explained that, to eliminate inconsistencies. That is why, so this one in your quiz, it can come. Why is it necessary for curriculum objectives to be filtered or to be screened through the lenses of psychology and philosophy? And it says that it is so such that in order that inconsistencies can be dealt with. Also, objectives should be very specific and devoid of vagueness. Learning experience should be the or should be effectively organized. Should be effectively organized. Should be effectively organized. Diverse criteria should be employed for evaluation, and evaluation should be formative as well as summative. What are the weaknesses of Tyler's model? So critics say that the model was too linear and rigid. You just move from objective, you come to content, learning experience, evaluation, you are done. It is too linear and rigid. Meanwhile, we are seeing that curriculum development is a continuous process. So if you develop this linear model of curriculum development, it means that it doesn't really fit some of the conditions of curriculum development. And two, it makes curriculum development static. Yes, and only leaves evaluation to the last stage. It means that even at the selection of objective stage, we cannot do evaluation. But there's a possibility that even at the selection of objective stage, there will be the need for us to do evaluation. And this one to also downplays content. It didn't really pay attention to content selection. And Tyler treats content as an aspect of learning experience and thereby downplays its role. You see that it is based on an end means approach for ensuring instructional efficiency, and then Tyler does not indicate adequately the interaction and interrelatedness of the elements. Now, owing to the weaknesses of the Tyler's model, another model emerged, which is the Wheeler's cyclical model, which came to improve on Tyler's model. And then for Wheeler, he believes in the fact that the curriculum development model should be cyclical. That is, it should be continuous. And it is classified among the objective models. Now, the phases of Wheeler's model. So unlike Tyler, Wheeler says that when we are dealing with the curriculum development process, we should begin with the first stage, which is selection of aims, goals, and objectives. Ultimate goals, that is the national goals. Immediate goal, that is the institutional goals. Then the proximate goals, that is objectives, that is the instructional goals. Those ones should be selected first. After selecting aims, goals, and objectives, then you select learning experiences. After selecting learning experiences, you select contents. After selecting contents and learning experiences separately, you put them together. Organization and integration of learning experience through the principle of integration sequencing. And then the last one, evaluation. So according to Wheeler's model, for him, there are 5 stages of curriculum development, and that's what I mentioned. Aims, goals, and objective first. Learning experience comes second. Content comes third. Organization and integration of learning experience and content comes fourth. And evaluation. Okay, so we should know the difference between this one and Tyler's own. So these are the features of Wheeler's model. It consists of 5 phases instead of 4, like what Tyler did. It has particularly answered the criticism on the interaction and interrelatedness of curriculum elements. And the cyclic character of Wheeler's model suggests that curriculum development is a continuous process. And then one could begin the curriculum development process at any point in the cycle. So someone may choose to start with evaluation and end with selection of goals and objectives. It is cyclical. And then Wheeler differentiates between content and learning experiences. What are the advantages of Wheeler's model? It is very flexible and continuous, just as the dictates of curriculum development says. It recognizes interaction among elements. It breaks down educational aims into specific classroom levels, allows revision at any stage. It helps to select appropriate content, learning experiences, and evaluation. And so that is that. Now, let me bring you back here. So you realize that when I was talking about the curriculum models, I gave you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But in this session, we have done only this and that. Yes, the reason why I am silent on these is that it will be given out as an assignment when the need arises. So some of you are going to work on the remaining 4 as an assignment. When it is time, I'll give it out. And then you come and do a presentation like what I am doing. You also share your screen, do a PowerPoint presentation. So that one will be given out as assignment. That is why I have not talked about it. So, ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the end of Unit 3. And then I don't know if you, when we break and then you go and write your quiz and all that, we continue with the subsequent ones. So we have 3 units more to go. So I bring my facilitation to an end. If you have any question, you can ask. If you don't have any questions, you give me a response. Just say, please, I don't have any questions, so that I will know that you are there. Some of you just keep quiet, and sometimes I'm wondering if you are not around. So any question, any clarification, any clarity? Any question from the class?
Please, I don't have any question.
Yeah, please, I also don't have any question.
So it means that we all understood everything perfectly.
Yes, sir.
Ransford
Please,
Ewua, go ahead.
please, about the reform and the revision. Please, can you hear me, please?
I can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay, please. About the reform. When they make that reform, would they consider the background of the learners?
Ideally, yes. Practically, it it rarely happens. Do
Okay,
you
okay,
understand?
thank you.
Uh-huh.
Yes, please.
So for me, I am thinking that the best way as a nation we can go about it is that, then why is it that every educational institution in Ghana, we should have a curriculum expert or representative in the school who will write reports on everything that will transpire? So if it is an annual report, if it is a biannual reports, or if it is triennial reports or whatever, or perennial reports, they should write. And then that curriculum expert will send it to his other colleagues or stakeholders, review it, and find out the challenges on the ground or at the grassroots. I believe if we should have been doing this, it would have helped. Other than that, ideally, it should be done. But practically, I don't. So that is my response to your question. Thank you. Any other question?
Okay, thank you, sir.
You are welcome. Any other question? Is there any other question?
Sir, please, I have a question.
Go ahead.
Okay, so please, you were saying the teacher should teach in favor of the learners.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what if the method the teacher is using is like almost half of the class understand, or they are following what the teacher is saying. Please, are you getting my question?
I am listening to you.
Okay, and then let's say few people also don't understand the method the teacher is using, and he said we should use another method, that's where we explain the way the learner understands.
Okay.
So in this case, is it that,
Mhm.
and maybe the teacher has done that, has used a method, but it seems maybe from the remaining learners that don't understand the first method the teacher used. Now the teacher has come to the level of the students, the learners, and now is using the method they understand. And maybe another group of people from the same people who do not understand the first method. Now at least few people understand the second method. Um, so now like the second group to now they've been able to understand the second method, and there's maybe this particular two people who doesn't understand. What are you going to do?
Yes, this is a very important question. So that's what you do. So as a teacher, let's assume practically you find yourself in the classroom. What you do is that intentionally or unintentionally find out the learning styles of your students. You have students who are visual learners. You have students who are kinesthetic. You have students who are, they also believe in writing and all that. So we have different learning styles of students, or we have different categorization of learners. So your first thing is that you reflect, stay behind, find out your students' learning style, and then you diversify your methods in the classroom. At a point in time in the classroom, you can say that today I'm going to use the lecture approach. Sometimes you want to engage students through presentation, role play, dramatization, gamification. You want to sometimes take them to a field experience. So you get to realize that consistently, a student may see that I do understand, I do understand, I do understand. Maybe that student learns better through field experience. The day you send the student to field experience and then he or she witnesses the thing himself or herself, then you see, so madam, this was what you were saying the last time. You see, so that is how it is. So it's just a matter of identifying different learning styles and finding instructional strategies that best fit the learning style. Thank you. Please, I hope it is clear.
Yes, sir. Yes, for now. Thank you.
All right. Nana ya Wonkatia Ninsin. Go ahead. Nana ya Wonkatia Ninsin. Your hand is
Hello,
up.
sir.
Yes, sir.
Hello, sir. Please, I want to find out when we are going to have the presentation.
It will be communicated on your page, okay? Hello? Hello? Just stay alert on your WhatsApp page. You will see it there and then you prepare. Don't worry, it wouldn't be something abrupt. You will be given adequate time to prepare. Then come and do the presentation.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
Okay. I think I've answered Nene on Ketiani, so I don't know whether his network is disturbing. So any other question apart from Nanayao? Any other question? All right. I think we don't have any other questions to ask. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your time. Thank you for coming today. We're going to end our session for today, and then we'll meet another time. Okay, all the best. As soon as we leave the call, I am pushing the slides to the page. So stay alert and then try and download it and read, because I'm sure very soon you'll be writing quiz. I hope you are aware.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So that is that. Thank you very much for your time. We're going to meet another time. Bye bye.
Welcome, sir. Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.